We can actually rearrange the Km equations a little bit more to suit problems with cracks. So to do that, um, let us revisit the Km equations. These are the Km equations where we had got rid of small omega z in terms of theta z. So we have theta z here. But later we proved that if the crack goes from minus a to a on the x-axis, so if this is the crack, this is your x, this is your y, and the upper crack face and the lower crack face have equal opposite tractions applied on them, then theta z is actually 0. So theta z vanishes from these equations. So once that happens, uh, and we take into account the symmetric case, then we are actually looking at a mode 1 crack. So symmetric case is the mode 1 crack, and this first equation, this first stress equation, is omega prime plus omega prime bar, which is 2 times the real part of omega prime, which is 4 times the real part of omega prime. uh, in the symmetric case, omega prime z and omega prime z bar are just here and at the mirror point. So uh, when they are like this in the symmetric case, when they are mirror images of each other, then their values are same for the symmetric case. So these two things are same. So we have 2 omega prime z. So these two give me 2 omega prime z, and this z minus z prime gives you x plus iy minus x minus iy. So this gives you 2iy omega double prime z. So these are the equations, Km equations for the symmetric case, Km equations for mode 1. These are Km equations for mode 1. So now once we have these Km equations for mode 1, we can actually break this up. We can just write it as a complex number. We can write it as real of omega prime plus I imaginary of omega prime. We can write this as real of omega double prime minus I imaginary omega double prime. Once we do that, we can write the functions sigma yy minus ixy as an expansion with the real and imaginary parts. And then separating the real parts, we can equate it to sigma y. So sigma y becomes this. And sigma xy is the imaginary part, negative of the imaginary part. So it becomes this. Also, we know that the sigma xy for the symmetric case has to be 0 at y equal to 0. So at y equal to 0, this is 0 anyway. So this quantity has to be 0. This quantity on y equal to 0 is actually imaginary omega prime x at y equal to 0. But we can also imagine that imaginary part of omega prime z is 0 everywhere, not only at y equal to 0, but it's 0 everywhere, in which case at y equal to 0 it also will be equal to 0. So we take the stronger condition that imaginary omega prime z is 0 everywhere, so that finally these are the stress equations for the mode 1 case in terms of omega prime z. Now sigma yy and sigma xy can be found from here, and then if you use the first Km equation, which is this one, and replace sigma y that we have already got from the second one, then we can get sigma xx as well. These are very easy calculations. Now look at this. We have these 2's appearing here. So we define a new function which is called a Westergaard function for mode 1. So it's called Z1. and it is defined as 2 omega prime z. So if you do that in terms of Westergaard functions, these will be your stress equations. The Westergaard function for mode 1 is denoted by z1, and it is simply 2 times omega prime z. If you now define everything in terms of the Westergaard function, you can also go back to your displacement equation. This is your displacement equation, and you can write everything in terms of the Westergaard function again, and uh, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to get for the displacements. This is what you're going to get for the displacements. Similarly, we can do a similar operation for the antisymmetric case. So remember here we derived that we conjectured that this and this has to be equal above and below the symmetry line in the symmetric case. For the antisymmetric case, they would be antisymmetric, so they would cancel each other out, and then you will get another set of equations in terms of omega prime and omega double prime, which will give you the stresses, this for the antisymmetric case. Then we define another Westergaard function z2, which is 2I omega prime z, and then we simply replace it here, and the stresses in this mode 2 case or the antisymmetric case are given by these set of equations. So if you know the Westergaard functions z1 or z2 for the mode 1 and mode 2 case, then you can completely derive all the stresses everywhere, not only at the crack tip, but everywhere you can derive the stresses directly from the Westergaard function. The Westergaard function is actually nothing but 2 times omega prime z in case of mode 1, or 2I times omega prime z in case of mode 2. So finding omega prime is same as finding z1 or z2, except that the equations now look a little bit more tractable, and knowing z2 or z1 directly gives you the stresses. It's just a change of nomenclature, nothing more than that. But Westergaard proposed this from a different point of view, so it's often very useful. So for the antisymmetric case, again the displacements will be given by these two equations. So you can derive them. You can derive the displacements. I'm not deriving the displacements here, but you have to use the antisymmetry while deriving the displacements. Okay, so let's take up a problem and see how this is used. So this is a problem of a crack with two opposite loads applied on the upper face and the lower face, and the loads are applied at a distance of d from the y-axis. So for this crack, you are given that this is obviously a mode 1 problem. There's no shear on the crack face, so this is a mode 1 problem, and therefore the mode 1 Westergaard function is given to you, which is equal to z1, and this is the function given to you. And now you have to note that for mode 1 case, we have the stress equations. So these were the stress equations for the mode 1 case, and it had real z1 plus y imaginary z1 prime. So this was your stress equation for mode 1. Now I am interested in y equal to 0 because I had defined k1 as limit r tends to 0, where r is this distance, theta is this. So I had defined k1 as limit r tends to 0 root 2 pi r sigma yy at theta equal to 0, which is same as limit r tends to 0 root 2 pi r sigma yy at y equal to 0. Now I am interested in sigma yy at y equal to 0. So if I put y equal to 0, this actually goes out of the window. So I have to deal with only real part of z1 and then take the limit r tends to 0. So this is what I'll have to do. This is what I'll have to do in order to find the mode 1 stress intensity factor for this particular problem. And this is actually quite easy. So what we do is we just replace z by x plus iy, and z1, uh, if you do this replacement, all z's are replaced by x plus iy, and this is what z1 becomes. We are interested in y equal to 0 because that's where we have to find out the real part of z1 at y equal to 0. So put y equal to 0 in this. This goes, this goes, this goes, and this is what you are left with on y equal to 0. Now, for if you are interested in the right crack tip, so you measure r from the right crack tip. So this is your r, let's say at theta equal to 0, and this is your x. This is your x. So r is equal to x minus a, or x is equal to r plus a. So replace x with r plus a in this expression for y equal to 0, and this is what you will end up with. I have replaced x with r plus a. A little bit of manipulation is required here. It's very simple. You get 1 by r. Now remember, and this is completely real, so the real part of z1 is also this particular expression. Now we have to take root 2 pi r real z1 at y equal to 0. So real z1 at y equal to 0 is this. This root r cancels with this root r, and then this root 2 cancels with the root 2 here as you take limit r tends to 0. As you take limit r tends to 0, this goes to 0, this goes to 0. You have a root 2 here. This root r cancels out with this root r, and this is the stress intensity factor, mode 1 stress intensity factor that you get. So there are some problems in the problem sheet that I have uploaded, which require you to use the Westergaard stress function to find the stress intensity factors. Most of the time they are very easy, done without much difficulty. You follow more or less the steps that I have shown here. For mode 2, you have to use a different set of equations. For mode 1, you have to use this set of equations. Okay, so see you next week then.